I'm Carnes, and welcome to Living Consciously. Today I want to talk about the ideal life. I want to talk about ideals. How do we know what to shoot for? How do we know what to strive for if there isn't something ideal about the subject we're dealing with? I'll give you an example. Now, although it's very misguided use, war is in the pursuit of peace, supposed to be, and peace is the ideal. We're always working in our life, making choices based on what we think is possible. And the ideals that are held in the field of possibility are something that's inherent in our nature. We know about them. And they're very simple, and they transmute themselves into human experience by degrees. And I think war seeking peace is a very good example of how we can misuse our choice. We make the wrong choice to try to achieve the ideal. There are other ways to achieve peace that might be healthier and better for all of us. But think about your health, for example. The ideal of health is vitality. That's a good word, isn't it, vitality? It connotes strength, flexibility, movement. It's an action word, I'm vital, right? And so our choices, whether they be about what to eat, where to live, how to exercise, what kind of exercise, these are all activated by the ideal of vitality. We are seeking vitality. So you see, the ideals kind of motivate us. And I do think they inform us, and I know they are inherent within us. It has to do with our innate spiritual wholeness. Now, I'm a teacher of modern New Thought spirituality, so I'm coming from that premise that there is a field of wholeness out of which we have all arisen and are arising. And within that field are these ideals that, as I said, become human experience. Love is an ideal, right? And so when we enter into a relationship, we are seeking the ideal of love, which is, interestingly enough, oneness. It doesn't mean we become one with that person. It means we discover we already are. We are already one with all sentient life, and that's true love. Vitality, of course, makes us make choices about health. And the ideal of peace has to do with how we enter into relationships, has to do with who we think we are, and what we think we can achieve. So without these ideals, why do anything? Unless you think you can do better, unless you think there's something to shoot for, unless you believe that there is a possibility that's beyond anything you've known up until now. And that's what the ideal is for. So this ground of being, in modern New Thought spirituality, we have eliminated the sense of God as man in the sky. You hear me say that all the time. But there is a ground of being, there is a field of consciousness, or an ideal awareness out of which our mind arises, and by means of which our body is formed. And that ground of being is common to all people. In fact, we're all in it together, individualizing it, personifying it. It is being us. And so what it is the conglomeration of ideals held in abeyance, if you will, awaiting our use of them. And we could call that our spiritual DNA. It's our physical DNA too. The body has a sense of its own wholeness. It knows how to heal itself. It knows how to keep things running smoothly as long as it isn't interfered with, which of course we do interfere with it with our thoughts and our emotions, and our negativity has an effect on the wholeness of the body, but it takes a long time to really break it down. It's much easier to heal than it is to be sick. Did you know that? Yeah, it is, because wholeness or health, vitality, is our natural state. And so to be sick is a temporary manifestation of a misuse of those energies, the energies of vitality, flexibility, love, joy, which all contribute to our general well-being. So what I want to stress today, you know the old saying, starting over from scratch? You don't start from scratch. You start from ideals. See, we're never starting over from nothing. We're starting over from what is pre-existent in us. And if we didn't know that, we would never try anything new. We wouldn't have invented words that talk about improvement, being all we can be. You know, all these things that we innately know are possible. We never would have invented those if we didn't have a sense that there's something in us, or there is an aspect to us that allows for us to achieve beyond anything we've done before. It's kind of like the ideal pulls us into it, if you will, informs us, motivates us, and pulls us to it, if you will. And how do we feel that? It's a prompting from within to do more. You know, you've heard this, be, do, and then have. I think it came from Warner, or I'm not sure. But it is a great truth that we must, what we are being, shooting for, activating, we will automatically do, and then we will have it, right? So we become it first by claiming it. I am vitality. I am the power. You know, when you think about criminals, they're shooting for the ideal of power, and they don't know how to get it. I've heard this before from authorities in the field that most violent acts are not about the act. It's about attaining power, a false sense of power and a false sense of how to get it. Okay, so what are we starting from? If we're starting from a feeling of unworthiness, a feeling of anger and resentment, we are not in harmony with the ideals that are seeking expression through us. And so we will be expressing from a very different vibration, a very different level of consciousness, which will only give us limited negative results. Think about it. Has anything good ever come out of your anger, your unwillingness to forgive someone? Has anything ever good come out of a desire for revenge or resentments? No, nothing good comes from it, does it? But when we allow ourselves to see the ideal of who we are, what would that be? Well, it's a loving, beautiful, expressive being with amazing powers of creativity, who has access to a universal field of intelligence to draw from and to bring forth as ideas turned into experience. And that's what you and I are doing all the time. And when we start doing it consciously, wow, there's nothing we can't achieve. The ideal keeps moving out, if you will, because it's universal. It's all-encompassing. It's not limited in any way. Are there really any parameters to love, for example? Can't think of any. It has no limitation. And what could it do if we allowed it to be an unlimited possibility through us? We'd behave very differently towards strangers. You know, we would understand that diversity is a beautiful necessity in life. And that, in fact, diversity is what makes life so interesting. We would be very different, and we would act very differently to other people. And therefore, our laws would be different. The way we set up families would be different. Everything would be different and better if we allowed love to expand in us as an ideal that is beyond any experience we've ever had of it. I always say to myself, you don't know what love is, Carol. You think you do, but you don't. And so let's let love have its way with you. I always think joy is something I could learn more from than sorrow. You know, there's a very, I suppose it's kind of natural when you don't see life as a universal experience of something being everything, to think that sorrow's good for you, or that lack builds character, and all those things that have come up down through the ages and from our psychological nature. I don't believe any of them. I think you can learn more from real joy than you can from sorrow, because joy is an ideal that most of us have never experienced. We've experienced temporary elation or moment by moment happiness, but joy, oh, that's something else again. And it's the same thing with vitality, and it's the same thing with supply. What is the ideal of prosperity? Because, we're all dealing with amounts of money in our life. It takes a certain amount of money to pay your rent and have a car and have insurance, life insurance, health insurance, car insurance, or whatever other, home insurance. It takes money to buy the necessities of food, shelter, gasoline, all those things, and then entertainment, and then travel, and then clothing, and oh my gosh. Are we going to say money's not real? No, it's real in this culture, okay? But it is an aspect of the ideal of sufficiency. Now, sufficiency doesn't mean just enough. It means constantly enough. It means, but you remember in the Christian scriptures, it says, before they call, I will answer. It said, to have what I need before I need it, it'll be provided. Yeah, that's a law. Speaking of the ideal. So our personal supply has to do with our understanding of sufficiency and our sense that we are living in the presence of sufficiency, and it knows how to supply itself with everything it needs to keep blooming and blossoming and reproducing and evolving. I started to say evoluting, evolving. Look at nature. It's sufficient unto itself, yes? Well, we're supposed to be that way too. We should have what we need when we need it. And unfortunately, we have a tendency to have a distorted view of time so that we miss the moment. And in this moment, we are well supplied because we're breathing, because we can think, because we're here, right? And if we are sufficient. And if we add unto that ideas which promote the expression of that which brings more supply to us, then we're operating in the right harmony with nature. So ideas produce promptings from within. Promptings from within act as directives to our mind. It's like you set an intention, that's an idea. And then that idea is planted in our subjective mind, our subconscious, which prompts us to act in a certain way. And that subjective mind is unerringly right. It makes us do what we say we want, or we say we believe. So that's why all the great teachers have used seeds and soil as metaphors for this principle. You plant a seed, it goes in the soil, you nurture the soil and the sunlight and the water, and it has a natural growth within itself, and it produces something. Okay, so what does it produce? The ideal in form. Wow, that's a lot. I said a lot in this first few minutes. Big subject. But it's very personal to each and every one of us. We're going to take a little break. And when we come back, we're going to talk about putting this into practice very personally. Questions we can ask ourselves and ways to actually move our mind in that direction. So let's take a break and listen to these wonderful sponsors whom we are very grateful for. They have a message just for you, so don't go away.
Welcome to La Buena Vida Women's Club, located away from the crowds but close to home. Come in throughout the day for Jazzercise, the world's dance fitness leader for nearly 40 years. Treat yourself to a relaxing massage, or unwind in the lounge area or outside on the balcony with friends. La Buena Vida Women's Club, located and designed with women in mind. For information, call Diane at 650-9721.
All right, we're back, thanks to our sponsors. We've been talking about ideals, those invisible qualities that seem to pull us towards them. And if they weren't there, why would we ever try to do anything better than we did yesterday? Why would we ever try to achieve? We wouldn't. There's something to shoot for, if you will, that is the quality that we've been working with, but perhaps we haven't been fulfilling our potential as it. I'll give you some examples. Love. We talked about that in the first part. That's an ideal that means oneness with. And so in our relationships on earth, our desire and our need and our drive to create intimacy is really a drive towards that ideal of oneness. Not to be one with, but to realize we already are. That oneness is pre-existent in the human experience. And so there's a lot of ideals like that. Now there's vitality, which causes us to make choices about our health. And there's sufficiency, which causes us to seek to improve our supply or our money life, our success life. So we can ask ourselves some questions today. I think this is a good one to start with. What ideal am I choosing to express today? In other words, what do I want to see grow in my life? What do I want an expansion of? Most of us want an expansion of what we're already doing, and maybe we want to know more about it than we ever have before. So what would I choose as an ideal? There's vitality, there's love, there's sufficiency, there's joy, there's peace, and there's creative intelligence. These are ideals. What do I want to work with today? And how would I go about that? What choices would I need to make to move myself or to enhance my experience of what my choice that would be closer to the ideal of it? I think when you think about personal relationships, it's pretty easy to see what we would have to do, the choices we would have to make. We'd have to listen more. We'd have to be more present in the relationship. We'd have to try to understand that person more and see the sameness, the commonality that we share, yes? And we would have to be more compassionate. Those are qualities that push our relationship into greater intimacy, and that's moving towards the ideal of oneness, isn't it? Okay. So it doesn't matter how old you are either. You know, a lot of people think they're done. Are you done? Ask yourself, am I done with love? Am I finished with joy? Have I had enough of supply? Have I had too many ideas and I don't want any more? No, of course not. The universe doesn't know anything about your age. God itself doesn't know anything about how old it is as you. It only knows to express as you and to be you and to be you from wholeness. This is a thing about New Thought spirituality that is so liberating, so healing. It's the truth that pre-existent in us is a matrix of wholeness. And as examples are nature and the body and the deep pervasive intelligence in each one of them. They know how to keep themselves evolving, and they know how to keep themselves whole and vital and reproducing, yes, replicating. So the whole experience of being human is like that. We live in potential. The potential is inherent in the ideal. And it's almost like we're traveling on a road from where we are. And I did a talk a while back called From Here to There about how we're here in consciousness, in awareness, having the experience we're having of whatever, love, relationship, money, health, but we want to go there. What's there? It's the ideal. So if we're ill or kind of broken down, things don't work as well as they used to, our ideal is vitality. And if we didn't have that wholeness matrix already alive and well in us, we would never recover from anything and we couldn't change anything. We could not remake this body in the image and likeness of vitality and health. But we can, if we want to put ourselves to it, if we want to make the right choices and do what needs to be done, we can, right? So ask yourself today, is there more of me to express in this life? Now, if you're very young, the answer is going to be yes, although I know some young people that have kind of given up already. There's a lot of them out there. They don't know what to do. Here's what happened to a certain generation. They were raised by parents like me who were not religious people, which is a good thing. They were free to think, but they never kind of replaced old ideas with new ones when it comes to the universe. They're kind of floundering, and they need to have an anchor of beliefs that sort of gives rise to the inner impulse to go out there and create and to understand the universe is friendly. No matter what's happening on Earth, the universe is friendly. Life supports us, and it's always for us and never against us. So it comes from a basic awareness that this experience of being human is a temporary manifestation of a great idea. The idea of I am, personifying, individualizing itself, and revealing itself through the life it has created. That's who you are. That's who I am. So it's never too late. We're never done. We're never too young or too old. We are always in the presence of the power that makes all things new. And it does it by means of us renewing our understanding. Okay? Ernest Holmes says, and Ernest Holmes was a man in the 20th century who wrote a book called The Science of Mind, and it's about this. He said, there's something in you that sings and sings and sings forever. It is the great song of being, the great I am. It's eternal, it's forever, everlasting, all of those things. And it's right here, right now. And its only purpose is to come through us, if you will. The thing that sings. What is a thing that sings? It's the joyful, happy heart. It's the loving, creative being. It's the powerful energy. It's that vast internal field of possibility that knows itself as you and knows itself as me. It's in the caterpillar who becomes the butterfly. It's in the egg that becomes the chicken. It's all throughout nature. The acorn that becomes the oak tree. Great example, great analogy. The little seed that becomes food for us to eat. The apples on the tree, everything. Everything has an internal something that is singing and singing its own song, the great I am, the great harmonic of the universe. So it's like a call. A call, an ideal is kind of like a call, an internal call to us. When you want more, it's not because you're selfish. It's a natural thing. It's how we interpret what the want really is. And of course, it's our nature to interpret it as something out there. I want that. But that's just representative of what's happening in here. What's happening in here is a desire to be more, to express more, to be seen more, to be known for who we really are. And that means we're responding to a call to step up in consciousness and claim a greater measure of our potential. How do we do that? It all begins with two little words. I am. That's where it begins. And we have classes in this teaching, and we'll be doing them in the fall. And I think they're some of the most life-changing classes I've ever taken. And certainly I've seen other people have incredible shifts in awareness. And they all say, before I took these classes, I didn't know how to think. And now that I've taken these classes, I have some awareness of my co-creative nature with spirit, or if you want to call it God, you can call it God. This universal field. We are its partner. All right? So that which is the thing in us that forever sings and sings tends to grow. It tends to expand. It tends to move out more into expression. If you want to know more about this, why don't you join me on a Sunday morning? We meet at 10:30 at the Mesilla Community Center on Calle de Santiago. And we talk about these great ideas. And we have a time of discussion. If you want to ask me questions or share an opinion. We have a little bit of meditation because I know that meditation is the great best kept secret on the planet and everybody needs it. And we do this every week at 10:30. You can also contact me at my personal email, which is ccarnes7@gmail.com, and I will answer you if you have questions. Or tell me what you'd like to see on the air, perhaps. Our website for the Mesilla Valley Center for Spiritual Living, which is a 501(c) nonprofit, is on your screen, and there's mine, but also you can see it right behind me, mvcsl.org. And you can make a donation to us. We operate through contributions. That's how we get the supply we need to keep this on the air and keep ourselves moving forward. It comes from many avenues, and we know the source of our supply is sufficiency in all things. And you are sufficient, and we appreciate your gifts. And you can do that via PayPal. So I think that's about it for now. You can also access this, tell your friends that Living Consciously is on YouTube. And they can get on it by either putting my name in and then Living Consciously, or Living Consciously and then my name, or Las Cruces channel and Living Consciously. There's always to get it on YouTube. It's all over the place now. And I really appreciate some of your feedback that I'm getting from people. They're really liking these. They're watching them in Canada and other places. And so those of you who live here locally, we'd love to meet you in person. All right, I think that's it for now. Have a wonderful week. I will see you next time on Living Consciously. In the meantime, stay tuned in.